Russell Wilson had their fair share of drama this offseason. Wilson's longtime teammate Bobby Wagner had this to say to USA Today Sports about where it stands. He said, quote, "I think honestly, it's part of how the league works. If you lose and don't go to the big game, they always try to figure out what went wrong, what happened. So I think after Russell made a couple of those comments, I think it was an opportunity for a lot of people to run with it. I definitely feel like it was a little overblown, but it's all water under the bridge now." That's what he said. Let me ask my reporter today, Jeremy Fowler, my insider extraordinaire. Was it overblown, and is it water under the bridge?
Well, Greeny, major issues did exist. Wagner is right that it is water under the bridge right now, but they had to work to get through, working through some consternation. Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson had multiple talks over the phone to try to sort some things out. Russell Wilson wanted to see the team step up, had some ideas of how to try to get back to the Super Bowl. Now, they made a few moves this offseason that weren't necessarily splashy, but Russell did notice. Tight end Gerald Everett acquiring in free agency from the Rams, considered an ascending player. Gabe Jackson, a guard out of Las Vegas. Two pieces that they can at least work with to get the offense a little bit better. And so this feels far from over. They are in a better spot, though.
So, Dominique, I know you have a theory on the piece of this that might be overblown, the piece of it that isn't water under the bridge. How do you see it?
I don't think it's water under the bridge. And this is, again, it's a theory that's not based on reporting. It's just based on me watching what's happened with Russell Wilson's career. Is I felt like Russell was the guy. He was the next guy that was going to take over after Tom Brady retired and Aaron Rodgers got too old. And I think Russell viewed it as that way. He was going to be the face of the league. But look, Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers are still balling, and we all have already decided that the guy who's next in line is Patrick Mahomes. So I think that the feelings that Russ is having now is less about the team around him, less about them having team success. It's more about him kind of retaking this throne that he thought he was in line to get. And we always talk about how he's never gotten an MVP. Like, I think what will make him happy is to regain that personal cachet as the #1 quarterback in the league. And even on Jeremy's list, what is he?
Fourth?
Yeah. Like, Russell
so how does
Wilson
he get that,
though?
Does he get, is the fact that he's in Seattle the factor here? Is it the offense that they run? What is it that he needs to get to be what you're telling me he wants to be?
I think that all matters. The offense that they've started to open it up last year. Let Russ cook. We all heard it and we all were saying it last year. They started to open it up. But prior to that, they weren't doing that. They weren't letting Russ cook. That's part of it. And being in Seattle, I think, is part of it too. Where if he does that in New York City, let's say, him and Sierra in New York, and he's taking the Giants to the playoffs, he doesn't even have to win the Super Bowl. The way that we react to that is different, whether we want to admit it or not. So I think that has to play a little bit into why Russell may be feeling uncomfortable in Seattle.
Well, let's find out from a guy who played in New York and knows what it's like. D. Wood, what do you think of this? Do you feel like this is water under the bridge at this point with Russell in Seattle?
No, it's not. And I do agree with Dominique. If you look at the list that Russell Wilson had as far as trade partners that I believe his agent had put out there, the Chicago, New Orleans, those are big time spots right there where, QBs tend to get a lot of, a lot of spotlight. So it's a little different than being up in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle. And also, just from the football perspective, look at that division. The NFC West is the toughest division in football. Okay, the Los Angeles Rams, a lot of people talk about them being Super Bowl contenders. The San Francisco 49ers are going to be right back there as Super Bowl contenders. Arizona got better. When you look at the Seattle Seahawks, they got a new play caller, guy who's going to be a first-time play caller, got questions along the offensive line still. I don't even know if the Seattle Seahawks are going to make the playoffs. So I think there's going to be a lot of questions, again, when we get past the season, whether Russell Wilson and Seattle Seahawks are in a true marriage together.
I agree with that. I think that, look, there are always surprises. We never know what things are going to look like, but it doesn't feel like they got closer. It feels like the way things shook out this offseason, they may have gotten further away. Much more on that as we go. Meanwhile, did you see what happened yesterday in the game between the Yankees and the Astros? So Jose Altuve is going to join us. Cassidy Hubbarth will be in our studio. Much more coverage of Game 3 last night. But that's not all the news we have from Wisconsin. Here we go. 15 days and counting until Packers training camp begins. And of course, the Aaron Rodgers drama continues to dominate all NFL offseason storylines. During the American Century Championship celebrity golf event in Lake Tahoe, Rodgers was hitting some balls and asked about his future. Listen to what he said.
I'm going to enjoy the hell out of this week, and then I'm going to get back to working out and figure things out in a couple weeks.
figure things out in a couple of weeks. By the standards of what we have become accustomed to, that's big news when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. He's putting something of a timeline on it. And, of course, training camp begins in a couple of weeks. Here's Dominique, and Damien Woody is here. But, Jeremy, I want to start with you. How should one interpret him saying we'll figure this out in a couple of weeks?
Well, Greeny, the Packers are hopeful, and I do sense after asking around some encouragement out there. I asked a source whether Rodgers' comments are reason for optimism. The source said, I hope so. And so there's still no clear-cut answer on what Rodgers is going to do. No uniform feeling out of Green Bay, but the team continues to wait this out. They're not going to trade him, and they're just going to hope he shows up.
And so, again, that is a couple of weeks away. So he's talking about a timeline that would coincide with training camp. That doesn't have to be a timeline to him if he's not planning to go to training camp. So maybe I'm reading into that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why, because there's nothing definitive in this statement, but this feels like the most definitive thing he said. Like, this makes me feel like he's going to show up. Because Aaron Rodgers knows that the best chance for his team to win is for him to show up on day one of training camp. It feels like this offseason was about him letting them know how upset he was, how disappointed, how angry he was. But when it comes to time to prepare to try to win a Super Bowl, I think he's going to show up. What I know he's not going to do is draw it out for a couple of weeks. He's either going to show up on day one or he's going to make a definitive statement like, I'm not coming in, and then he's not going to show up. But I can't see him just dragging this into a week or two into camp because that doesn't serve anybody.
Well, meaning, and you said it, we were talking about it this morning, sort of an all-in or all-out philosophy, right? If he's going to be in, he's got to be all in.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter to him. Only thing that matters to him, it seemed to me at this point, is winning a championship. And being all in is the way that you go about winning a championship. I think it was important to him to get the message across to them that he was very upset. And he's done that. He's made everybody in all of Wisconsin uncomfortable all offseason. That mission has been accomplished. Now he's going to go out and remind them why they were so upset in the first place, because he's that darn good. So I think that's what's going to happen.
Because he is the reigning MVP. Damien Woody, how do you read it?
Yeah, listen, I agree with Dominique with the fact that it was kind of unclear, dropping hints and stuff, but it was the clearest message that Aaron Rodgers might be reporting to training camp on time. And listen, Green, we all know that Green Bay has the leverage in this particular situation. But we also know, and Dominique knows this as well, when it comes time for training camp, players play. And I think that's why Aaron Rodgers said in a couple weeks, we'll kind of have some clarity, because most players start getting that itch right around this time to report. And I think in this particular situation, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to show up to the training camp. It's not going to be one of these prolonged things where, he shows up a couple weeks. I think it's going to be either he reports on time or he's going to hold out for a long time.
So what does he say? You and I, we live to psychoanalyze this stuff. What does he say? Because it seemed so, like the one part of it I can't picture is him coming and being like, you know what, we're good here, or anything else like that. How does he frame it if he just shows up?
He doesn't say anything. It's nothing to frame. He said, I'm here for my guys. I want to win a championship. I have my issues with the front office, but I care about these people around me, and I also care about winning a championship. So all that other business stuff be damned. I'm here to win. That's all he says. But I do want to bring up one thing.
Yeah.
Damien said around this time of year, guys, football players get that itch.
Yeah.
Training camp, I don't get no itch.
No.
I don't. Maybe that's you, D Wood. Maybe you miss training camp. You get the itch to go out there and bang into people, but I'm good.
You still get that itch, D Wood? Do you have it right now? Right. Training camp's around the corner. You still get the itch?
Well, hell, Greeny, I've been out of the league for a decade, so that itch is long gone. But I'm just saying, like, when I was right out of the league, yeah, you would get that itch when training camp. Yeah, why not?
I always just found it very hot. My worst experience at training camp was the one year the guy with the snow cones didn't show up. I had a very tough time covering the Bears in Platteville that season. Okay, much more football.